Welcome in another edition of Where the 99 Lead. I'm Andrew Joyce, your host, and the program Where the 99 Lead refers to the University of Pikeville campus. Of course, those historic 99 steps that lead to campus, but also lead from campus into the community and into the world. We have special guests today. We talk many different topics on Where the 99 Lead: academics, athletics, ChiCom. We talk about projects around the Coleman College of Business and what have you. Today's focus, biology. And I have to tell you, I am intimidated stepping into the studio today. Joined by Dr. Darla French, Assistant Professor of Biology at the University of Pikeville. Welcome in.
Thank you.
And Mates Meyer. Dr. Meyer, welcome. Also Assistant Professor of Biology. Not my best subject. I have to apologize. I am intimidated, but hopefully I'll learn something today. Dr. French, first, let's talk about your background, where you come from and how you arrived at the University of Pikeville.
Well, I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, so that's where I was born and raised. Went to the College of Worcester for my undergraduate degree in biology, and then went to Purdue University for my master's and my PhD. And so coming to UPike was my first job out of graduate school, and so I'm going into my third year here at UPike.
Third year now at the University of Pikeville. You're part of the family now.
Yeah.
Dr. Meyer, again, for you as well. Let's talk about where you come from and your background and how you arrived here.
Originally from South Africa, born and raised. Came over to the United States in 1994. Did my undergrad work at the Knox College in Galesburg, Illinois. A master's degree in vertebrate zoology from Illinois State University, and then I did my PhD at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. Came to UPike about 4 years ago, so I'm going into my fourth year now, and very happy. I'm considering myself a Pikevillian.
Pikevillian?
A Pikevillian, yes,
very good.
Correct.
Part of the family as well, and our special guest on this edition of Where the 99 Lead. Dr. French, of course, a new class on the schedule for UPike students, restoration ecology. New to me, of course, biology, not my subject anyway, but tell us about the structure of the course and how it may be different from other biology courses.
Pretty new for our students too. It hadn't been a course that we had offered in the recent past anyway, since the two of us were here, I think. Right. So it was kind of an experimental class in terms of course structure. We had a once a week lecture in the evening for I think 2 hours, 7 to 9 p.m. Sure. And then all day every other Saturday for a practicum out in the field. And so it really was sort of experimental. We weren't sure how many students were going to be interested. We ended up having about 10 students sign up, which was excellent because they all fit in a van. So sure. It's like the number of students that is good for fitting all in one van. So it was an evening lecture once a week and then a Saturday lab. And so pretty intense in terms of the time spent together in the classroom and in the field.
Restoration ecology. What's that all about?
So restoration ecology really focuses on taking a piece of land that maybe isn't in the state that you currently want it to be in and trying to restore it back to what, as close to what initially could have been to begin with, if that kind of makes sense. So a lot of times around here you're looking at like mine sites, for example, sure. And trying to restore them back into something close to what it would have been had natural succession been able to occur. Now our particular site, we have a 28-acre site that one of our trustees donated to us. Terry Dotson donated a 28-acre site out at Middle Creek, just past Middle Creek Battlefield. Sure. And so part of what the students had to do was figure out the history of that site and figure out what it had been used for in the past. We don't think that it had been used for mining at all. It mostly was just hillside and mountain and some farming down in the flatland part of it. Sure. So they were tasked with coming up with the history, looking at the deeds and kind of the progression over time of what that land had been used for, and then coming up with a plan to figure out how to get it back to as close to its natural state as we could.
Right. And Dr. Meyer, we talk about an outdoor classroom. I would imagine that property is considered an outdoor classroom. How does that help research opportunities for students?
Well, obviously, right? If we have students doing research outdoors, we need an outdoor classroom. One of the things that is important, I honestly believe, and I know Dr. French does too, in local. And so one of the great benefits we have then that this is a local site. There's great value, and Dr. Darla will talk about in a bit, going to Belize, going to Africa and everything, but in the end many of our students will remain in Eastern Kentucky. And one of the things that we also were trying to do is give them this opportunity to see that there's other things they can do with biology. You know, so the opportunities are astounding. One of the problems we have logistically is then getting students out to the site. We found that many of them actually live pretty close to the site, so we got updates daily. We've got one student that just graduated that lived just up the road, and so before we went on Saturday, she would text us and say, okay, the stream's high, the stream's not high, and stuff like that. And so that's definitely something that will happen now. For instance, Dr. Tim Whittier is teaching entomology this summer, so he's getting students to go out there and collect. But it's also that we want to kind of give them opportunity that students can kind of be self-guided, and that was one of the benefits that we tried to do with restoration ecology too, is to give students, they in that transition period, it was mostly juniors and seniors, and where they move from being a student in our classroom to becoming more of a colleague, a lot of independent work, and that's one thing that we really emphasize in this class is you can do this yourself. You're strong enough, you've got the background, you've got those fundamentals that we taught you, go out and explore. And so our hope is, we only did this class last fall. This summer, a lot of our students were actually the ones that are really interested in research is out of town doing research, undergraduate research with other institutions. And so we hope in the fall that people can start doing what we call independent studies, right? That they can go out, initiate their own research. I've had some students do that before. And so we're hoping that it becomes self-guided. I think there's a lot of value in students realizing that they have the power to do these things themselves.
We talk biology at the University of Pikeville. Dr. Darla French, Dr. Matthias Meyer, our guest on this edition of Where the 99 Lead. We talk biology and a new course being offered, restoration ecology. I think many in our area that have been in and around the coal industry, restoration ecology is what has been referred to, correct me if I'm wrong, as reclamation in years past. And those around the coal industry, I think they can relate to that terminology to what you're trying to accomplish with this. Am I on the right track?
Yeah, I think reclamation and restoration ecology often go hand in hand. Sometimes with reclamation, they get into bringing invasive species to use as ground cover, and so with restoration ecology, the goal is a little bit different in that sense. We're not just trying to protect the ground and get it back sort of to natural state, but we are trying to focus on true native species and figuring out what was here, what should be here. But yeah, I think reclamation goals and restoration ecology goals can be similar.
And they work hand in hand.
They can indeed work in hand
Definitely.
in hand. Yeah. In fact, one of the students that we had in our restoration ecology class, her dad is in charge of reclamation for one of the big companies. I don't remember which one.
I can't remember.
But so that was nice because he came and kind of checked up to see what we were doing,
Sure.
and he's taken Tim's ecology classes out before to see his reclamation sites. Right. So we are trying to find those kind of connections so we can see that the goals are similar.
And the reason I bring that up, I think sometimes the coal industry gets a bad rap from those that are interested in the environment, but yet many of those that are involved in reclamation that I've known in the past, they're very interested in the environment and getting that piece of land back as closely as they can with what they have. So I can see this certainly working hand in hand and helping those in reclamation get it back to original state or as close as possible.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, the people that we've met in the industry that are involved with reclamation take their job very seriously. Sure. and want to try to erase whatever mark that the coal mining may have left on.
And I think that was one of the things that came out of this class. That was one of our initial intents is I'm involved in ecological consulting out in New York and stuff sure. with a company there. But one of the things we notice is that our students come in and they're kind of very focused, right? Most of our students are pre-meds. They're very interested in pre-med. And when they realize there's these alternatives, I mean, we're from Eastern Kentucky. We live in Eastern Kentucky. This is where some of these industries happen. But there is an opportunity there for our students from UPike to then go in and do this reclamation, to be involved in this process and stuff. And I think that's just part of it. Give our students those alternatives. I think we both think it's very important, obviously. But I think there's also a lot of room for collaboration. I was listening to the announcement, I don't know if you heard the announcement from Altec yesterday, that they're opening, and that's an old site.
Right.
And so, and I think with Altec's intent, there's going to be kind of park-like area around it and stuff too. And I think that's what our intent is. We want to give our students opportunities here in Eastern Kentucky.
Sure. Restoration Ecology, new course offered in the biology department at the University of Pikeville. I'm very interested. Not my specialty by any means, and I'll struggle to be a C student, but I am still very interested at any means. Dr. French, what's the student response been to the practical experience, to the course? As you mentioned, pretty intense lecture time, one night a week, and then spending a Saturday. A lot of students, they're not too keen on those Saturday experiences, no matter how good they are. But what has been their response?
Incredible. I mean, incredibly positive. I think we were worried initially at the beginning that, and I think, maybe we did get a little student kickback right at the beginning with our first Saturday. It was one of those really snowy days in February, and I was just like, oh, we have to get up and be on campus at 8 o'clock so we can go out and do field work all day.
Yeah.
So I think initially we had some kickback, but it's sort of like a rite of passage or a bragging rights for the students, right? To be like, oh, it was horrible. I had to be in class all day on a Saturday, but really, they loved being together and starting to create that sense of community, which is kind of what we wanted to set out to do with our students is create a good sense of community. So it ended up being really incredibly overwhelmingly positive, I would say. There got to the point where at lectures and Saturday labs, we had to force them to go home because we're like, it's the end of the day, we're tired, we want to go home, but they all still wanted to stay around and talk. So, good.
That has to be good for an instructor when you have a student that is not ready for the class to be over.
Yeah, in fact, I think we had tears on the last night of the class being over and people weren't ready for us. Some of them were seniors, and so we won't be having them back. But I think also, we just got to the point where we were looking forward every week to spending X amount of hours with each other and going to meals. Usually we would have meals, lunches built into our Saturdays. Sure. And so we really found that sense of community, I think, that we were trying to instill.
Dr. Meyer, what does the Restoration Ecology course add to the biology curriculum?
Well, kind of touched on that a little bit earlier, and I think one of the things, it expands our curriculum. A lot of our classes are focused, or has been traditionally focused. I mean, I think we've got a broad curriculum, but a lot of it has been focused towards pre-med and those medical fields, which is a growth industry. I mean, granted, many of our students are going to go there. They're going to go to KICOM or medical school, physician's assistant, and all those fields. But I think this offers our students an alternative and show them that biology is much, much broader than just those fields, that it is a growth industry, that biology is one of the fastest growing fields, and that there's alternatives for employment. One of our students, and I think he got involved in it, actually did field work for a mining company in botany this summer. As far as we know, we've been trying to get a hold of him, but he definitely asked for references. And so they can get involved in this. The fact is that reclamation does happen. As far as I know, it's federally mandated. It's going to happen. Why not people from Eastern Kentucky, our students, taking those jobs? That's important. Community is important here, and family is obviously important in Eastern Kentucky. So if we offer our students and we broaden our curriculum, that they can see that they can do something else and still remain in the area, I think that is central. And so I think it definitely broadens our curriculum. We've been working on making our curriculum much, much broader. We are a liberal arts institution, and I see significant growth in our department in that regard.
You mentioned the Altec announcement
Yes.
recently, that there's a huge influx of money from Altec and their plans for aquaculture.
Exactly.
For some different things that are going to take place on a former mining site. But diversification, and these are fields, Altec is a company that can use some biology majors.
And that was in the announcement yesterday. I actually watched it last night, and that was one of the announcements that Mrs. Pierce made. Mrs. Pierce. Can't remember her last name. Pierce.
Lyon.
Lyon. Yeah. Miss Lyons made that announcement, the co-founder of the company, that we're going to have a need for biology. Those positions that open up, they're going to need biologists. Sure. Why not fill those positions with people from Eastern Kentucky, from UPike? How important is that going to be? That we can tell them this fall, in a few years, there are going to be positions available in both the laying facility, the chicken facility, and then the aquaculture facility. So we need to probably look at catering our classes then, and try and maybe get an aquaculture class, or at least an ichthyology class, teach these children about fish, chicken, sure, agriculture, and try and fill those positions internally. That's why those jobs are being created, is for students from Eastern Kentucky.
And those are the types of things that really a biology course would not think about in our area. No. Until now, because it just wasn't something that was there for students when they graduate. Dr. French, how are students able to incorporate what they learn from classes like restoration ecology into their other biology studies?
First and foremost, for me, and maybe for Dr. Meyer too, I really think building the sense of community between our students is an important thing, because so many times I think, especially the students that don't live on campus, don't always come and feel that sense of community with their classmates. If they're struggling, they just feel like they're alone, and they Sure. don't really know who to go to for help. And so I think if we can get that community built between our students, they realize they're not alone and there's other people going through the same thing. But also sense of community with the faculty as well. I mean, our jobs are here to teach them and to be here if they need help with things, and so many times they're afraid to come ask us or admit if they're struggling. So for me, restoration ecology, I think, really started building that sense of community to start small, right, between our 10 students and 2 faculty, and we can hopefully see that grow as they move on to other classes. They can take that same set of experiences. But also, I think there's some practical sense in the skills that they learned. The curriculum that we used in lectures, we did have a textbook, but we also were pretty wide read in terms of the other types of things we were reading. So we read poetry, we read political things from early in the century. And so it really helps develop their critical thinking skills to be able to take all of this information in and then make a decision about it. And that's what critical thinking is, and purportedly that's what we're supposed to be teaching them to do, is to be able to critically think about things as well. And so I think restoration ecology really, for the students we had, it started giving them the tools to be able to successfully do that and carry it over to other classes that they may take.
I can certainly see the benefit. Spending hours on a Saturday with your professors, and while you're in a lecture setting, your professors aren't very approachable. You spend hours together on a Saturday, you do form community, as we talk about UPike being family, and I can imagine when a student is struggling, possibly in another biology course, that they would be able to approach you. I can see that certainly being a benefit. You're tuned to Where the 99 Lead. It's a presentation of the University of Pikeville. Today we talk biology. We talk new courses in the biology curriculum. Restoration ecology, the focus of today's program. And joined by Dr. Darla French and Dr. Matthias Meyer, assistant professors of biology at the University of Pikeville. Dr. Meyer, how do you adapt your teaching style for courses like a restoration ecology course?
So traditionally I teach very different courses. I teach parasitology, anatomy, and those kind of courses. And those courses are often principles courses. I teach fundamentals, so oftentimes it is the format you were just talking about, where they sit in a lecture. I try and get this information through to him. We have labs, but it's very rigid. It's Sure. very structured. And one of the things, and I think you answered your question 2 seconds ago, one of the things about a course like this is that you then the student become responsible, right? We make a transition where the student realizes that they have the power. They have this knowledge, they have this fundamentals, and if they don't have it, they know where to get it. And so one of the ways I adapt is that we definitely take an approach where we step away. We kind of hand off a lot of the day-to-day to the students. I mean, we're still in control of the course, but for instance, our lectures in this course was actually student-led. They did the lecture. We sat at, well, it's not a lecture, a discussion, but every student had a turn twice during the semester to then present the material from the textbook to their fellow students. It was a discussion format. We sat there, but we definitely took an approach that we were guides on the side and not sages on the stage. So in a way, they sat there and we sat with them. We would get involved in the conversation, but there was a leader within the class, a student, that was in control of that class. And we sat there, we had to wait our turn to talk and everything like that, and that was very important. And then also in the field where oftentimes in my labs I have a specimen, I'm like, this is this, this is this, this is what's happening. Even in the field, they had a say in what we were doing that day. They had to kind of contribute actively to what are we doing today, what needs to be done at the field site. They did a lot of cleaning. They removed in excess of probably 80 tires from that site, right, out of the streams and river. They had to work out how the pulley system worked, that they're going to pull them out. They had to get the tools we needed to do it. They were responsible for ordering it, or at least giving us a list to order it for them. And so you give them power. And strangely enough, one of the things that we definitely saw out of that is that success breeds success. As soon as a student realizes that they can do these things, they are much more keen to involve or to get involved in those things. They take initiative and stuff. Sometimes too much, right? Sometimes we've got to bring it back a little bit, but it definitely gives students power. And I think that's sometimes important because traditionally in many biology classes, it is where students sit and kind of just try and conquer all this new information. And in this one, you know, we have some students that are definitely naturalists, hunters. They go out and hunt and fish, and all of a sudden they could use that, right? They knew things. They could be like, that is what that is. And all of a sudden you could see, right, that transition of going from a student to becoming our colleagues. Right. That's going to be part of this community, you know, that's going to shop at the same place. Their kids are going to be in school with our kids. Sure. And so they make a transition from being a student to being a colleague.
And developing critical thinkers.
Very much so. I think that's one of the most important things.
Dr. French, you traveled with students and other UPike faculty recently to Belize. Let's talk about that trip from a faculty perspective and what it's like to teach abroad.
It's pretty cool, I'm not going to lie. This was my second time going to Belize, so Dr. Tim Whittier is the one who organized the trip. I'm kind of the secondary faculty member to go as support. Right. So I'm kind of learning all the strings about planning international travel, keeping our students safe and insurance and all that good stuff. Sure. When we're abroad. So it was good. It was a successful trip this year. Again, we spent half the time in the jungle and then half the time at the ocean, and so it was really to show our students a juxtaposition between those two ecosystems, looking at a forest ecosystem and then looking at the coral reef ecosystem in Belize. And so it's just incredible. I mean, I'm sort of a field biologist anyways. I like to be out and doing things outside and identifying things. So it gives me a chance to kind of, I think, hone the skills that I don't necessarily get to use when I'm doing the traditional lecture style of classes. But just also an excellent opportunity to work with another faculty member, and together you kind of, you know, just like with restoration ecology, it was a team taught class, and that's kind of how Belize was too, team taught between Tim and myself. And so it's great. It's a really good opportunity for us, and an excellent opportunity for our students to see another country. And
students see things click.
Yeah.
You don't see necessarily coming from a textbook or a lecture.
That's right. In fact, I think on this trip we had 8 students, and 4 of them I had just had in my freshman principles course. And in the spring, we go through all of the different types of organisms there are on the earth. So you start with bacteria and you work your way up through mammals. And so for those 4 students especially, the material we had just covered in the spring semester really clicked for them, looking at taxonomy and organization and all these different sea animals that we had talked about. To see that in real life, I think, really clicks.
Dr. Meyer, I'm sure you've had an opportunity to teach many different types of courses. What would be your favorite, and why so?
Oh, that's a trick question. I enjoy everything I teach, but I will tell you one of the most transformative experiences I've had as an educator was restoration ecology. And then the other class that I really love to teach, which is kind of off track, is the Principles of Biology class for non-majors. Every student at UPike have to take a class, a lab science.
Right.
And so I teach the section for biology. And so what the challenge there is often then is you get students that come in that feels the way about biology, maybe the way you feel about biology.
Right.
They it's not their forte, it's not something they love, they've had a bad experience with it. And that class specifically I really love. It's a unique class, I think. It's the first time I've taken this approach. It was developed at the University of Pikeville by a previous faculty member. And it's inquiry based, so I've got students for 2 hours at a time. And oftentimes I just give them a few things and say, this is the principle we're looking at. How do you get there? So we use inquiry, where I don't necessarily lecture to them all the time. And I've had great success with that class. But I also taught a parasitology class last semester that I love. I teach comparative anatomy. I love teaching. And so I don't really have a class here that I can tell you that I do not like teaching. So I honestly enjoy most of my classes. But the non-majors are a special group, because they come in with an aversion sometimes to biology, and sometimes when they leave, we've actually had a few that switched majors and became biology majors.
We have to get past the intimidation. I can
Exactly.
relate with those students.
You know, and that's part of our what we need to do here is to teach students that they can do this. Our students are highly intelligent. Our students sometimes lack some skills. I can teach you skills, and that's what I try and do in this class, is teach students some of those skills when it comes to learning that gives them success. And when they switch over, when they become a biology major, right? When you see somebody that really did not like the field and then actually switch over, very, very satisfying, transformative.
I would imagine. Dr. French, I ask you the same question. Favorite class to teach?
Yeah, and I'm like Dr. Meyer. We're both born teachers, and pretty much put us in a classroom with some students, and we love it. So I don't know that I could pick a favorite. I will say I've had the opportunity to teach freshmen all the way up through seniors. Just in my 2 years here, I've had quite the range of experiences of different classes that I've taught. And different levels kind of have different pros and cons, right?
Yeah.
So freshmen are easily scared, so you can usually get them to do their work. Seniors, though, this past semester I taught senior seminar, which is kind of the capstone course, and we focused on the nature and philosophy of science, so stepping outside of science and taking a look back at science and how does science work and what are the hallmarks of science. And that was really a pleasure because I could see a lot of things click for the seniors. You know, all their 4 years they'd been taking separate classes. Here's a discrete anatomy class, here's a discrete molecular biology class, and then finally, as a senior now, in your last semester, looking back and seeing how all of it fits together, it was nice to see those light bulbs go on.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've got to tell you, we began this show, I was intimidated. Now I'm curious. Maybe I'll check out, maybe I'll sit in. I'll audit the restoration ecology course with you one day.
You're always welcome.
Yeah. Dr. Montes Meyer, Assistant Professor of Biology, our guest today. Thanks for being here.
That's my pleasure.
And Dr. Darla French is Assistant Professor of Biology as well. We talk restoration ecology and biology at the University of Pikeville, and I know it is one of the favorite majors. It's one of the favorite sections at the university. Thanks for being here and being our guest.
Thank you for having me.
You've been tuned to Where the 99 Lead, a program brought to you by the University of Pikeville, the leading university of Central Appalachia. I'm Andrew Joyce. Thanks for tuning in.